Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lee and I are back. It has been an incredibly busy week, as we all both can tell you. But we are here. We've showed up. We're on time, and we're really, really proud of that this morning.
Exactly.
Right? And
Yeah.
the reason being is I spent probably close to, I don't know, about 8 hours in airports, two flights, and a lot of kids in airports this week, of course. Luckily, I snuck in and out when it was still kind of quieter, which was great. But my goodness, every airplane was full of children this week. So I am very grateful to say that I am back home and that we're all settled back in. Lee, you've had a busy week as well with work and
Yes.
work
Work,
because
work, and more work.
a lot of people would probably not know this, but Lee right now is juggling three things. No, four things
Yeah.
right now. So there's a lot going on, and Lee always shows up with a smile and ready to go. So I'm so impressed and proud of her. We were supposed to have a guest on PJNC's live this morning. However, their schedule was conflicted, which is again, we were laughing right before we went live that we're going to show up no matter what, and we'll get that person, that guest, to show up hopefully in the next week or 2 weeks back into the schedule when we have a slot. No big deal because we already were prepared for what we were going to speak about, and so we're going to just go with it and talk about our subject that we had planned ahead of time. So Lee, how was your week? First of all, what's new? What's going on behind the scenes, PJNC kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So my administrative duties have ramped up thanks to you. But it's
Tell me.
like a beautiful thing. It's exciting because we're scheduling people for the podcast, we're scheduling guests for the lives. It's awesome, and I love being part of it and seeing it. I mean, it ties into what we're going to talk about. It's behind the scenes, and I'm actually involved in it, and I'm seeing it happen, and I'm the part that actually schedules and sends out all the information. So it's been a busy week, on top of course my 9 to 5, on top of Grit and King and all that other good stuff. So yeah.
On top of you forming a company, on top of your other business that's in the
Exactly.
financial industry too. I
Mhm.
mean, like it is a very busy year end for all of us. But as we were talking about between my business partner and myself the other day, that the other business partner, not Lee, the other one, the boyfriend one, that if we look back a year ago, that we were getting there, you know what I mean? But it was more learning mode, as in we had our system, we had our structure, we had clients we were working with, but we were in like the area of okay, we have the foundation. There's certain areas we need to learn more about. And so
Mhm.
we last year were more in that mode. And I remember sitting down and doing my year-end goals, and I need to work on that again today, in this week, next week. And the problem now with that is the time just to do that,
Yes.
as important as that is.
Yep.
And last year it was the priority. This year it's okay, about fourth on the list of time allotment. And
Mhm.
so that's to me just really reaffirming to everything that we've accomplished in this last year and how much busier we are as a company and how quick it goes. That is, I guess, my thing, my word of advice to younger entrepreneurs is you look up 1 year goes by and there's like a huge
Yeah.
dramatic difference. And Nesta, my boyfriend the other day and business partner, which you will hear and see him within Grit and King if you ever are involved with Grit and King. We've been talking about it, that where are we going to be at in another year or 2 years or 3 or 5? That's the thing is he had brought this up, I think it was yesterday when we were driving, that we both really love the example of Alex and Layla Hermosi. And if you look at what their company did, it took them, and they're very frank about it, that it took them 3 full years to be profitable. And so when we're at 6 months or a year, it's easy for us to sit there and beat ourselves up or say that we haven't accomplished enough. That's not true. Pure and simple, it's not a fully functional company. However, that being said, our program, Mentorship to Partnership, was built to help entrepreneurs get to that 6 month mark where they want to be versus where they realistically will be in 18 to 24 months. So we're involved with that side of the business structure and business building every single day. So speaking from experience, it is possible to be functional, to be visible, to create sales, but you still are in education mode, even at 6 months is my point, I guess is my roundabout way of making my point. And Lee, I think you can attest to that for yourself too.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting year. Just making the decision to step into the entrepreneurial ring, and then all that comes with it. So with Mentor to Partnership, it helped me, although I had already completed some of the steps, the beta testing of the program really helped me to get a bigger picture of what I needed to do, all the steps that were necessary as far as starting your business. But again, finding the structure for your business. What do you want to do? What are you called to do? Who are you called to serve? Your big why. Mm-hmm. So all that was, that was in development mode from the beginning of the year. And here I am. I know exactly who I want to talk to, who I want to, who I'm called to serve. But at the same time, it's, and I know we've talked about this with a couple of our guests, where you are, say, within 3 months is not where you're going to be within 6 months, not where you're going to be within, 8 months.
Yes.
So things have changed and things have grown, and I swear every single day it gets more exciting for me. And I don't even care about all the work. I juggle my full-time job and my 3-4 other, things that I'm working on. I even clean on the weekends, so there's a lot of stuff going on, but I wouldn't trade it for the world at all. It actually gets me up, miss. So I'm okay. No one else knows.
I already know what she's gonna say. That's why I'm laughing.
I'm a sleeper.
I'm not a morning person. Go ahead.
No, I'm not a morning person, but I'm a sleeper. I've been a sleeper since I was a baby. My dad would rush home from work just so he could see my eyes open when I was first born, because I slept so much. So actually, and you and I have talked about this, about getting up early, and getting yourself ready for your day, meditating, whatever is necessary for you to get your day started. So actually for the last week or so, I've actually been getting up, like even my body. And I'm not trying to do it. I don't know what happened, but even my body, like, it gets up at a certain time and I'm like, just get up. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to fall asleep anymore. You can't lay here in the bed. So just get up. So just naturally, automatically, I've started to do that. So I'm even excited about that, because that's not me. So I think that just kind of is a testament to,
you have a purpose.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it really does get you up out of bed.
And I'm not saying you didn't have one before.
Right.
It's just when we only are focused on a job, a career that we're going to somebody else's company, plain and simple. It's not nothing negative. I'm not talking about the politics or the personalities, none of that. I'm just purely speaking about the fact of, are you building your own dream versus somebody else's? Mm-hmm. And when you're working for an established organization, it's easy to say, I don't know why they do this. I don't know why they do that. And, a lot of times there's people that have been in careers for 20, 30, 40 years. Some of them have never worked anywhere besides that one organization. So they have unfortunately never had to learn how to be the new kid in the dynamic, or they've been there so long that a lot of their personality is, just who they are. And that's not bad. It's just hard becoming a part of that system. and
Right.
building somebody else's dream versus, again, building our own. And it's funny because you've already brought it up and I just said the word system, and that's what we wanted to really talk about today, was how crucial, as you have been building in the last year, and you've been, again, an intricate part of Grit and King mentorship to partnership now that's going to be launched soon. Oh my goodness, 8 days. I just looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh boy. Um, how crucial and how important has it been? And how many times a day do I say the word system? I don't even know. How crucial has systems been from your viewpoint as a younger entrepreneur in building a business?
They're vital. I mean, you have to have them. There's no way in building a business without them. Uh, and there's so many different areas that you have to have a system in. I mean, training, implementation, uh, just building the business. There's just so many things that require systems to be in place in order for you to be able to do that. And it, yeah, I mean, you have to have them. You can't get to where you want to go without them. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Recently I had a very cool conversation with a fellow entrepreneur. And I always love to ask other entrepreneurs, what made you think of this, this company that you created? Because some of them are just out there in a good way. I mean, as in, like, this gentleman, for example, does something that's similar to Cirque du Soleil, but it's to bring identification into the world about climate change and how we need to work with the earth. Two totally opposite things, and brought it together, and it's just incredible. And it's great for kids to witness, and it's educational, and it has all the things that make giving possible, like it's just beautiful. But I asked him, and his story was just so off the wall amazing of how he came up with the concept. And a lot of times, these businesses that are being built are abstract idea at first. But even how he planned his business was built off of a tree, and that's the way he thought of it. That every one of the limbs need to kind of shoot off of the main idea. And I was like, oh my goodness, I love that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
I personally have always used the analogy of a foundation and more of a pyramid, not the pyramids when we associate with, bad network marketing. I'm talking about
right.
as in, by the time you get to the top of the hierarchy, its strength is there because it's been built from the bottom up, and it gets smaller as you rise up to the top, as in you don't have 20 CEOs of a company. So that's why, in my mind, I always think of it because the solid factor in a pyramid in the foundation. And one thing that I've always thought about is every single department needs to have that tested system, because by the time you get to the top, then you do not risk fracture. And I know we've talked about this privately, and I've actually spoke to a gentleman about this the other day, that we do that for one particular reason, that when we are hiring, there's only two questions we ever need to ask. Is it the wrong fit of a person if something is going wrong, or is our system flawed? Did we not do a proper job within that system to get the results? Because when we were handling it, it worked. Well, then did we miss a step in our system? Did we forget to explain something? Did we forget to train them on something? Or are they not using their talents in that position? Is there a better spot for them? It's very logical versus an emotional, political business conversation, which I don't really love. So by staying with the logical side of it, we can assess the problem very quickly, and that's all due to systems. Now, that is a very, very high level answer, as in, like, overview, right? How does that then go down to the everyday? That means that somebody that may create content and oversee content can then help us train the next person that's hired, because their system works, and it was my system first. And then it was, for example, mine, then yours, and now the next person, and then you're overseeing all of those people that are doing what you just did. I believe that is the best way to train a team. And then that way, everybody is cross-trained. I also know what that person is doing, even though they're 2 or 3 levels away from me, not below, but away.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that that is a strength to our structure, as you said earlier. And that is exactly why I am always going to tell every one of our business partners that structure is crucial. And it's been so overlooked. In fact, that's something that I talk about a lot more, I feel like, than anything else nowadays. And that's why, because it is so overlooked. And I believe I have the answer to the reason is there's this outdated version of a storefront approach to business where you have, and I used this example the other day, that you have a chef, they're great at making food, right? And I'm being very, very, that's a very, very simplified answer, but it's
Right.
right. They know how to make the food. They do the
Mm-hmm.
food. They're in the kitchen making the food. But that doesn't mean that they'll know how to keep the company running and pay the light bill and make sure that overhead is covered and employees' salaries, on and on and on. And that's where, again, that business structure is so crucial, and yet it's been so overlooked because of the lack of education, because of the lack of a guidebook in modern business. Because you think about it, even 10 years ago, we didn't have social media the same way. 10 years ago, we didn't have automation or AI or any of those things. But a lot of people are still building their businesses according to the rules of 10, 15 years ago. And it's something that I talk about in one of our sections of mentorship to partnership, that is actually called the supply and demand model, which has been in effect for almost, or maybe over 100 years. That I don't know exactly, but around 100 years. That era is gone. I mean, there are still businesses that are storefront. I'm not saying that. I'm saying how they build the structure doesn't need to be the same way that it was even 10 years ago, especially not even 20 years ago. But that model has been evolved as well. And so we need to evolve how we build our businesses. And so I'm very grateful that you've been one of the first through our program. You were one of our beta testers as well, because of the fact that I can see, Lee, every day how you are applying and using it for yourself. So it has been wonderful to see. And I know that you are still in learning mode. Again, we all are. We'll never quit learning mode for sure.
Right.
But it's crazy how much that there is when it comes to knowledge if you want it. And I know I've said this before, like that after almost 20 years, I stopped thinking of myself of tomorrow I'm going to know it all, or it'll be all completed at one point. It's never going to be completed.
All right.
Where launching is crucial and setting a date to launch is crucial and not delaying.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
If you delay, then if you start that, where is it gonna go? And if you start a bad habit, that bad habit is going to get worse. And
Yep.
you can't, like, it doesn't even matter if you're fully functional, fully ready to do it. Just do it and hit correct the bumps, correct the mistakes or the bugs or whatever you want to call them as you go. But don't delay in starting anything.
Yes. And to your point, we all have things that we're going to uncover as problems. But like there is things that we're building out right now actively, that there's certain things I will be the first to tell you I'm not that great at it. And before, again, in corporate America, I've been in that situation where I was assigned to do things. I'll never forget, Lee, this is back when we both worked downtown Chicago. And there was a certain report that I had to do every day. And it was one of those things that nobody trained me how to do it. And it was handed down from a manager. And the manager himself was very abstract. And again, he was a very nice person, but the handing down watered down the what to do with this report. And I remember he would get upset with me And then he would realize, oh, I didn't show you how to do that, or oh, I never told you that part. But it was almost a daily thing where I would send it to him. I'd be sitting there waiting. I'd be like counting down, call me in. And he's like, well, this is wrong. Oh, yeah. Nobody told you to do that either, huh? And this would go on and on and on. And it became consistent. And I've never forgotten that experience because, again, there was lack of training, lack of education, no system in place, no even a sheet of paper written down of how to do this.
Right.
And when the girl who I replaced left, all that knowledge left with her. Mm-hmm. And then it was dropped in my lap. And there was a lot of holes in the system of how to do it. And so it turned into an actual situation where we had to sit down and talk about it and talk to his boss about it. And I've never forgotten that over an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
You know, and at the time I thought I was doing it wrong. Now getting a little older, I'm realizing there wasn't any training. There was no information. There was nothing at all. It was just assumed it would be done every day without any steps in between. Yeah. And so I've thought about that. I don't think I've ever told you that before, but I think about it quite often as we're building things out ourselves, is how do we build that almost like a fail-safe in that if for some reason you and I were both on an airplane at the same time, cut off, somebody couldn't reach us for a couple hours and there's something that needs to be done immediately. Do we have the proper system in place that they could, once they're inside of the Grit and King family, the ecosystem, could they figure it out? Could somebody else pick up the slack if somebody was sick and recreate the exact same result? That's always my goal. And that's always been my thought. And again, those kind of instances are exactly why I do that.
Yeah. And I think that's a great thing because, and it's a necessary thing. I've been in the corporate world for 30 years, give or take. And every single job, which by the way is how I developed my training skill, always the same thing. They give you a few minutes. They may even give you a day, maybe half a day, show you what to do. And then they just drop it on you. Mm-hmm. And you got to figure everything else on your own. Yep. And it stinks because
it's very nerve-wracking too.
It is. Yeah. And you're making mistakes that you don't even know. I mean, your example is perfect. I mean, you make a mistake. Now, after that happened to you, a couple times, you would think that would trigger the thought to, oh, you know what? Let us sit down and thoroughly go through this process so that we have no other mistakes from there. It's not like that. And exactly. I have dealt with that my whole secular career. And I love that we don't have to do that here in our business.
Yes.
That's one thing that has always bothered me. And I mean, I suppose it's something that I should be not thankful for, but it's made me who I am, in dealing with people and training people. So it's given me that skill to be better, but it's something that needs to change, and not having it in your own business is, I think, very important.
But again, that's again back to our point of this conversation of systems and structure. Those are the kind of things when you're a young entrepreneur, you have no clue, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That is a very common, expected rookie mistake. Very common. Mm-hmm. But that is one thing that I pride Grit and King on, is that we are a systems company. Like, if you had to sum us up, that's what we do. And I'm laughing because I never thought that's where I would end up. And that being a strength of mine. But I'm actually called in, I'm consulting on another company right now, that's exactly what they needed. How to get from the beginning to the goal of having everything in place and people in a program. And this isn't an abnormal conversation. How do we get it done? And I love that because it's like I can immediately map in my head. I'm like, well, there's 2 or 3 different ways I can tell you that are quick, 2 or 3 ways that are a little bit more advanced. What do you want to do? And it's interesting though, because it's almost like to the point where I can say, okay, yeah, I know what you need. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it as in it's such a common problem. This is why we talk to authors and other people that are considered like a traditional agency, all sorts of things, because the structure is the hardest thing to figure out. And again, it's lacking in the education space. It's lacking because of most people are still in the mindset of the supply and demand model. It is truly what it is. So I appreciate your feedback is my point, that having the systems and the structure in place is a godsend to you as well. It is for me too, and I can't live without it. We're so much so that we have daily, weekly, monthly task lists for each position that works with us. And that structure grows all the time. Like we're constantly refining it and trying to, of course, automate as much of it, which we're doing great, of course. But even more, like how do we even systematize everything even more on a bigger level?
Right.
So that's it. And again, what we said earlier, it's never complete. It's never going to be 100% done. You always have to keep focused on it as well. So I hope that is helpful to, like I said, younger entrepreneurs, people that are just getting started, women that want to build a business. But at the same time, I do need to put the warning out there. One last thing I'll say before we are over is that this isn't something to scare anybody. This isn't supposed to be a scary, overwhelming task. The best thing we always talk about inside of our training is, and in coaching, is write it down. Just keep writing things down. I mean, again, we all are victim to notebooks and Post-it notes. But as you're building something out, write it down, test it out, write it down, test it out. Keep doing it until that system works, and then move on to the next thing. And again, I'm into mind mapping. So if you just take a really big piece of paper, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, and draw out each department. Okay, so if you put the company like as the hub, that's the peak of the pyramid, but you draw the foundation, and you have sales, and you have marketing, and you have what accounting, and all those different things. Sorry, off the top of my head, I'm like, hold on, what else is there?
Right.
But if whatever you may need, and just actually create a square around it, and then from that square, then you create all the different things that need to be created. And at first, it's going to be kind of sparse, and then you'll redraw it again, and then you'll add to it. So that's why I suggest keep a really big piece of paper and just keep adding to it. And it's going to be messy, and after a while, that's okay. And then you can redraw it, and then it's more refined. So even that, as silly as it is and as simplified as that is, it will give you a start. It will give you a place to start, and it's not overwhelming, and take one of the areas at a time and just move on from there. And again, then you hire somebody and you put them into that square, and then you get them into your systems, and then you move on to the next square, and then you get them into that system, and then you move on to that square. So if you break it down into, some companies will require 10, 12, 14 different projects to create that structure. And again, don't let that be overwhelming, because nobody has ever said you have to be the one that does it all, ever. But align yourself with people that are into that systemized approach, and then everything will be working in that department while you're working in yours. There's certain things that I'm good at. There's certain things that Lee is good at. There's certain things that all of us are good at. And then there's things that we are all not as good at. It's okay. We all work at our strengths. We hire for things that we're not as good at. Plain and simple. That is the best advice I can give anybody. So is there anything you want to add to this, Lee, before we're going to stop? Because we've already been talking a half hour without even thinking about it.
Exactly. No, I think we summed it up very well, touched on the most important points. And yeah, so structure, systems, yes, please have it all in place.
We're
at least start working on it.
Yeah, don't get overwhelmed by it.
Right.
And yes, so we are definitely always going to advise that systems have to be a thing. So I hope that's helpful to anybody that's, like I said, a younger entrepreneur maybe listening to this. that's the thing, is we want to make sure that we're giving hand down the advice and help you up. Put the hand out and to extend our hand to anybody that needs it.
Yes.
So that is our goal. So Lee, we have of course the holidays coming up, which means Monday you are not going to be live. You get the day off too. I don't care what you say. You have to take the day off. You
Okay.
deserve it. I will be back Wednesday, of course, live. And then next Friday, Lee and I are going to, is that the last Friday of the year? I don't even know.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I thought so. I just don't have a calendar in front of me. Since it is going to be the last Friday of the year, Lee and I are not going to have any guests next Friday because we want to talk about how we created PJ&C, why we created it, reflect on the guests that we've already had, and also for us to talk about what we are preparing for next year. So next Friday, that is going to be our subject matter. It's just the two of us. And it's our way to celebrate us as well, starting this project together and celebrating how many years of friendship. And we're going on 28, or maybe we even hit 28 now. I don't even know. Yeah. But that's, all to be celebrated. And we want to take a moment, pause, and do that. So we are not having any guests with us next Friday. For that reason, it was an active decision. But then the following week, we do have guests lined up. So we are just getting rolling. And it was like perfect time of year for us to do this, I feel like. Now we're rolling. And we will remind everybody, of course, please, if you want to join us on an upcoming live or podcast, we would prefer both. But if you want to start with one versus the other, that's fine as well. And we're going to be rolling out more spotlights. I know Lee did one on us this week, and we have more coming up too. So we have so much coming up. We will see you back live next Wednesday. However, we will still post something on Monday. I've already got something planned. So we will still be active over the weekend. See you live next Wednesday and Friday. New podcast episode will be coming out next Tuesday. And we're going to keep on rolling. So, Lee, is there anything you want to add, or you want to sign us off?
I'm going to sign us off.
Okay.
Remember, if we can do it, you can do it. Everyone have a Merry Christmas.
Yes.
And a great weekend as well. Enjoy your time with your families, and alone if you're taking some time to yourself. Just enjoy.
Yes. Happy holidays, and we will see everybody Wednesday, and we'll be able to say Happy New Year next Friday then.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us.
Bye, everybody.